On today's show, it might be summer, but Alex Ovechkin is still finding a way to get in some hockey.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about your captain, Alex Ovechkin, as he's not taking a summer off. He found a way to get in some hockey and play with some of his friends over in Russia, and he scored a goal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov joining the KHL will most likely be delayed. What's behind that? And then in the last segment, we'll talk about a look back on Jay Beagle. That is going to be a reoccurring theme this summer, is taking a look back on what I would consider some great Capitals players from the past. But that was the big news from today, is that Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin made his return to the ice by participating in an all-star match between the NHL and KHL players in Moscow. The 38-year-old not only played in the event, but he also helped coordinate it along with Artemi Panarin and Mikhail Sergachev, former Capitals Ilya Kovalchuk and Dmitry Orlov, as well as Igor Shesterkin and Alex Radulov were among the other notable players in the match. So it is not funny, but it's interesting that this is something that a lot of those guys do, a majority of them still active players, and they're finding a way to get in some hockey in the summer. And hey, you see a lot of the younger players that are trying to work their way up into the league, making a name for themselves. Oftentimes they play hockey throughout the summer. And I think that to a certain extent, when players get to a certain point, they're like, I don't really need to do that anymore. So it's cool that they were able to get together in what is kind of this all-star game that was going on over in Moscow. Ovechkin's performance in this all-star game, Ovechkin's exceptional performance during the all-star game showcased his enduring skill and talent. Teaming up with familiar faces like Artemi Panarin and Evgeny Malkin, Ovechkin made an impact early in the game by scoring within the first minute. That's our captain, demonstrating his trademark shot accuracy. His enthusiastic celebration further engaged the crowd, highlighting his charismatic presence on the ice. The game concluded with an 8-8 draw, and Ovechkin was recognized as the player of the game. Who would have thought that? So a pretty cool moment for those guys over in Russia. And it's good that they're all friends, that even though they are not playing on the same team together in the NHL, that they can have a common bond. When they are on the ice together in the NHL during the regular season or the playoffs, they are fierce competitors, but it's good that they can come together in the summer months and put this together. And good on Ovi for being one of the guys to help put it together. And of course, talking about Alex Ovechkin, I am excited about this season. I can't wait to see what happens, with PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Alex Ovechkin playing on the top line, I would imagine, together. And just seeing how these new players gel together. And Alex Ovechkin, the captain of the team, what is the rapport like between those players? But the thing we know about Alex Ovechkin is he is chasing down history, chasing down Wayne Gretzky. And ultimately, he knows there's only so much time on the clock for his team while he's on the active roster to win another Stanley Cup. As Ovechkin enters his 20th NHL season, he continues to maintain remarkable performance levels, despite facing challenges in the previous season, having scored his 18th 30 goal season. Ovechkin currently stands at 853, positioning him just 42 goals away from surpassing Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. It is within shot. I think that for a long time, especially with his slow start, it seemed like something that was not real attainable, but now just considering how he was able to turn it on in the second half of the season, all of a sudden it's seeming like it's more and more possible. It's going to be interesting to see what Alex Ovechkin we see to start the season. Is he going to get off to that slow start again, or will he just be guns a-blazing right from the first puck drop? I guess it remains to be seen. He is getting more work done, working out, that is, in conditioning over in Russia. The unprecedented matchup between the NHL and KHL stars served as a valuable preparation for several players as they gear up for the upcoming season. And Ovechkin, who has been on vacation in Turkey and has also dedicated his time to both maintaining his fitness and spending time with his family, utilized this opportunity to further his offseason training ahead of his return to DC coming up here real soon. So exciting as we are edging towards the end of July here. And that hockey, even though I don't know how warm it is where you're at, but it was 85 where I live, very warm. And it seems like that hockey is a long ways away, but it's not. Training camps will be here before you know it. If you're an NFL fan, training camps open up on that soon as well. So there is definitely the feeling of fall in the air, despite it being July and despite the fact that it's very warm. But it's good to see Alex Ovechkin getting in this extra work in the summer. And again, a cool moment for all these players that the only thing they have in common is, I would imagine, that they're friendly or friends, but they're from Russia. So that's the common denominator there. And there seems like to be a more closeness amongst the Russian players than, I guess I would say, than if there was a bunch of Americans playing in another land. I guess I don't know that to be true, but it does seem like a very closely knit group of players. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov. There has been a lot of talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov saying that he wanted to go to the KHL. His agent refuted it, and then it happened. He was put on unconditional waivers for the purpose of release by the Hurricanes, but now, stop the clock. His transition to the KHL might take a little bit longer than he had anticipated. I'll discuss straight ahead. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, coming to you on a Saturday because I'm here for you when Capitals news is breaking. And, well, Alex Ovechkin and the news about Evgeny Kuznetsov, I wanted to keep you guys in the loop. So let's next talk about Kuzi. There's been a lot of bumps in the road with him leaving, wanting to go over to the KHL, and now we hear it might not be a seamless transition, shall we say. So talking about Evgeny Kuznetsov's intention to join the KHL. We knew that. Kuzi, formerly playing for the Caps and Carolina Hurricanes, has reportedly expressed his intention to return to Russia and join the KHL. However, according to a recent report, he will have to wait before finalizing any agreement with a KHL team. And listen, this guy is being paid millions of dollars. I don't think that he is going to be living on the streets. But in any event, it is kind of probably not what Kuzi had laid out. Talking about Kuznetsov's career and achievements in the NHL, we can't diminish what kind of player he was. At his best, he was a dynamic player, one of the key players in the Capitals winning the Stanley Cup in 2018. Kuzi had a successful career in the NHL, playing in 743 games over 11 years and accumulating 575 points. His standout performance during the 2018 postseason was instrumental in helping the Washington Capitals secure their first and only Stanley Cup title. And I think that is something that's overlooked, that it's easy to say that Kuzi was this kind of player or he was that kind of player, but he was huge for this team. I would say at least in the beginning of his tenure on the Capitals, and the last handful of years, few years, let's say, were a bit bumpy. That even Tarek El-Bashir said that they'd love to trade him, but they couldn't get a return for him. He's had a lot of issues, personal issues, issues on the ice, and again, and if you're an everydayer of the show, you know I spoke of that. I don't know what the master plan or what's going on in his head, that if he thinks that he returns back to Russia, that somehow he is going to be able to find his former glory, his former self. And maybe that is the case. And I would love nothing more for than that to happen. But if it didn't work in the NHL, why is it going to work in the KHL? So talking about updates on Kuznetsov's potential signing with the SKA St. Petersburg team, reports from Match.tv suggest that Kuzi's potential signing with SKA St. Petersburg is imminent, as SKA would need to make necessary roster adjustments to comply with the salary cap regulations before registering his contract with the KHL. So it's interesting that even over in other countries as well, it's just like the NHL. There is salary cap restraints. There's this and that. I ultimately think that he will land on his feet playing in the KHL. It's just going to take some time. This update was shared by a source with Match.tv on Friday. Next here, talking about details about Kuznetsov's departure from the NHL and his impact on teams. Initial reports indicated that Kuznetsov was poised to sign a 4-year deal with the St. Petersburg team after terminating his NHL contract with the Hurricanes following his unconditional waiver clearance. Kuznetsov walked away from the final year of his 8-year contract with the Capitals, forfeiting $6 million. That is really not wanting to play over here. And I would like to be in a position in my life that I could walk away from $6 million. And it appears that Kuzi will remain an unrestricted free agent until there is sufficient salary cap space to accommodate his contract. Additionally, other KHL teams such as the Tractor in his hometown may also express interest in acquiring his services. With Kuznetsov's departure from the NHL, the combined salary cap hit of $7.8 million is entirely removed from the books of both the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes, who had been splitting his salary. The Capitals had retained 50% of his salary after trading him to the Hurricanes during the 2024 NHL trade deadline in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick, which they get to retain. That is a key part there as well. So the Capitals making some changes. And I mean, it's been a change. It's been a while. I know that he went to the Hurricanes, and then he was put on waivers there for the purpose, unconditional waivers, so his contract could be terminated. But it puts the Capitals in a good position as they have more salary cap available. And it's also good for Kuzi. He wanted to leave. We are able to follow his wishes Ultimately, I think that if you take a look at players, if they are unhappy playing on their current team, then they're not going to be real productive, that kind of thing. So as far as Kuzi is concerned, I'm happy that was able to happen. And I wish him nothing but the best over in his homeland of Russia. Whenever that takes place, it does appear that there is a bit of a hiccup with him going over there just based on salary caps and all those kind of things. But something that has gone back and forth. You take a look all the way back to his time with the Capitals, and him saying that he wanted out of this team and then refuting it, and then playing on the Carolina Hurricanes and saying, I want to go over to Russia and I want to terminate my contract, and his agent saying not so fast. But then the next day, yes, well, that is exactly what happened. So definitely something that you kind of have to follow as the storylines go up and down and up and down. So interesting time for Kuzi. I'm glad the whole situation has worked out. I'm glad the Capitals have more money to spend. Let's just really hope that the Capitals can hit the ground running, and let's wish Kuzi nothing but the best. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will take a look back on one of my favorite Capitals, Jay Beagle. Not one of the marquee names on the team, but a guy that really put the work in to get where he's at. Let's discuss straight ahead. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And listen, guys, life is busy. I get that. It's busy from day to day. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to get things done. And sometimes you'll tell myself, I'm going to get tickets to the Nationals game, and you forget about it. Well, fear not, as tickets are actually cheaper closer to first pitch. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, welcome back into this weekend edition of Locked On Capitals. Next here, talking about Jay Beagle on Locked On Capitals, your team every day, and his many contributions to this team. And he was a guy that was not one of the upper echelon. He was not one of the guys that you'll think of as one of the greatest Capitals ever. But the one thing that I like about his game is he put the work in to get in where he's at. It was his dad looking out for him. And let's rewind time on Jay Beagle. If you are a newer Capitals fan, maybe you're not too familiar with him, but I find it fun oftentimes to reminisce. So let's go back on the history of Jay Beagle. Jay Beagle had an impressive journey to the NHL, starting from his early days in Calgary to becoming a key player for the Washington Capitals. His hard work and determination made him a crucial part of the team's success, and he continued to make valuable contributions, especially in the playoffs. After his successful tenure with the Capitals, he joined the Vancouver Canucks and later the Arizona Coyotes. Let's talk about his journey and where he came from. Al Beagle's son, Jay Beagle, embarked on an unlikely journey to the NHL, going from playing in Anchorage to becoming a key player for the Washington Capitals. Despite not being a headline player, Beagle's work ethic and determination made him a crucial part of the team's success. His coachability, hard work, and perseverance have earned him a spot in the NHL. Talking about the early years in college, when Beagle was young, he played hockey in Calgary and won the 2003 Air Canada Cup with the midget AAA Calgary North Stars. After not making the Calgary Hitman team, he played for the Calgary Royals in the AJHL during the 2003-2004 season. He received 2 awards. He then played for the University of Alaska Anchorage's men's ice hockey team from 05 to 07, focusing on becoming a two-way player, working to get where he's at. Nothing was given to Jay Beagle. And I think that is ultimately one of the things that I like about him is nothing was handed out for free. Talking next here about his professional career beginnings. After Beagle's second year in college, he left to pursue a professional hockey career, landing a tryout with the Idaho Steelheads, where he played 8 games before joining the team for their playoff run. Beagle helped the Steelheads win the Kelly Cup championship with 1 goal and 2 assists in 18 playoff games. During the playoffs in Las Vegas, he met Steve Richmond, who offered him a tryout at the Washington Capitals development camp. And oftentimes that's where you hear these players get their start. They get a break and they make the most of it. They don't squander it. And that was the case for Jay Beagle. I remember him playing most of the time. I remember him playing on the 4th line, and just always been that 4th line for the longest time for the Capitals has really been something to be reckoned with. Talking about his rise to the NHL. During the 2007-2008 season, Jay Beagle demonstrated his talent with the Hershey Bears in the AHL, scoring 37 points in 64 games. Noteworthy, he was the first AHL goal scored shorthanded against the Bridgeport Sound Tigers on November 5th, 2007. Beagle signed a 2-year entry-level contract with the Washington Capitals for the 08-09 season. After signing, Beagle participated in the Capitals summer and training camps, ultimately debuting for the Capitals with a promising performance in a preseason game. Although initially starting with the Hershey Bears in 08-09 season, Beagle's NHL opportunity arose due to an injury to, if you remember, Alex Semin. Quite a guy as well, quite a player, quite a Russian player at points for the Capitals. Talking about his career with the big team, the Capitals, during the 09-10 season, Beagle's growth led him to securing a spot with the Caps, ultimately signing a 2-year contract to remain with the team. He demonstrated notable performance improvements in the 17-18 season, achieving 10 goals, 10 assists, and 20 points in 49 games. Beagle's contributions to the Caps were recognized, leading to his signing of a 3-year extension in 2012, and subsequently another 3-year extension worth $5.25 million in 2015. His efforts culminated in the Capitals Stanley Cup victory on June 7th, 2018. A really great moment in Capitals history. Upon the conclusion of his 11-season tenure with the Capitals, Jay Beagle joined the Vancouver Canucks on July 1st, 2018, after signing a 4-year, $12 million contract. And he definitely turned into being one of the great players. I mean, I'm not here to diminish what kind of player he was before the Capitals, but he was a guy that put the work boots on to get a job in the NHL. This wasn't a guy that, maybe had the most, extensive skill set out of the gate. He wasn't a top draft pick. This was a guy that he knew if he was going to get an opportunity to play professional, not even in the NHL, we're talking AHL or perhaps ECHL, that he was going to have to put the work in. And if you are a Capitals fan and have been for some time, you remember how huge Jay Beagle was for this team. He then went on to play with the Arizona Coyotes. He was acquired on July 23rd, 2021 in a trade with the Vancouver Canucks. So a fun peek back at history with the Capitals, talking about Jay Beagle. And again, it's one of, I even had his jersey back in the day. I was that big of a fan of Jay Beagle. And it's one of the things people are like, man, you got a Capitals jersey and it's a Jay Beagle jersey. Why don't you have, this player or that player? I'm like, I like Jay Beagle, and that was the big part of it. He was a great player. I don't think that he was a great player just because he put a lot of work in. He put in a lot of work, and subsequently that hard work was noticed. And the powers that be looked at him and said, yeah, he's pretty good. And he was a dynamic player for the Capitals for quite a few seasons there. And it's a fun peek back to take a look back. As you know, I've talked about other players on the show, Braden Holtby. I've talked about Carl Hagelin. I plan on talking about other players from Capitals past, primarily like around the 2018, the high water mark, I guess I would say, for the Capitals, but pleasant memories for me to reminisce with all of you, talking about some former great Capitals. And it's funny, I talk about Jay Beagle or Braden Holtby, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long, and it really hasn't been that long, but it's been in some cases, a few years, several years in some cases for some of these players, and that's how life goes. things go by quickly, but quite the contributions from those great players from the past, and many more great players to come in the future. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this weekend edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. Oh, but there's more. If you're a fan of other DC sports, there's Locked On Nationals, Commanders, Wizards. So no matter what major DC sport it is, Locked On has got you covered. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.